was glad to see his arc in this movie, and how he grows into the role of the Optimus Prime we all love and care about. Selfless, wise, compassionate, and endlessly courageous. Those are all examples of things I wish I could possess, but will never have.
You mean like having two eyes?
Boy, do not make me come over there.
That Rise of the Beast is finally out, and with it, we can finally share our thoughts with the rest of the world in our first review.
And completely spoiler-free, of course.
So let's dive right in. Let's talk about the story. When I would describe this movie to someone in broad strokes on paper, it would seem like another Revenge of the Fallen. There's a piece of technology of great power out there, and humans in the past took it in as an artifact. And now the Autobots, along with some humans, must go look for it and travel to some places with the help of a big old Transformers who's way past his prime. Pun intended. To find it before the bad guys get it in their hands to empower some even bigger evil out there. However, if you go see this movie, it's like they took those concepts and not only expanded on them, but also managed to improve on them. When it comes to the human characters in this movie, let me get this right out of the way. None of them are annoying. Compared to what we got in the past, they don't act like they just drank gallons of coffee or energy drinks. They're not goofy like some of the characters who are in the Bumblebee movie. Anthony Ramos manages to carry the movie on the human side with his charm and his wits. Even his backstory is recognizable, but they add in a couple of new details to make it feel quite refreshing. They show you enough to see what he's going through and why he does the things he does, and they don't linger too long on it to the point that it feels like padding. His character is called Noah in the movie, and he's an ex-veteran down on his luck, struggling to find a job despite having a lot of skills like mechanical skills or being specialized in microelectronics. But his most special skill, I think, is uncorning.
What's uncorning?
Uncorning is a special ability to make corny dialogue not feel corny. And believe me, there's some corny dialogue in this movie, and he manages to uncorn all of it, just because he is such a great actor. So don't bring Anthony Ramos in close proximity to popcorn, because Anthony will make that stuff disappear in no time. Dominique, her character, is called Elena in the movie, and she's smart, well-educated, and takes matters in her own hands. And most importantly, she remains relevant throughout the whole movie. Her motivation to join the Autobots is a little bit flimsy at first, but when you see the movie, you'll understand why she does it. I like her character a lot, and both of them manage to balance each other out. You never get the feeling that one character makes the other feel useless. In other words, Elena is the brains and Noah is the bronze. You know, struggling to find a job or not being given credit for work you delivered, those are things I could relate to on a personal level. It might seem like a cheap way to draw sympathy from your audience, but the actors do such a great job that they manage to make it feel genuine. Just like in the Michael Bay movies, they travel around to different places around the world. But unlike those movies, they manage to have the locals and their culture be involved and weave it into the story in a very natural way, and even have an impact on our characters that influences them in some way. Something that the Michael Bay movies could never pull off in a lifetime.
Everyone did a great job in the voice acting department.
Of course, Peter Cullen, as always, does an amazing job as Optimus Prime. And you gotta give it to him. The guy's over 80 years old, and he still wants to take on this iconic role, and we are so grateful for that.
Over here, kitty kitty.
Stand down! I won't ask a second time.
Oh snap! Prime went all Black Panther on them.
Not that his other performances weren't good, but this is one of the first performances where he brings in such a big variety of emotions, like anger, frustration, having doubts, and even being annoyed, because this movie, for a large part, is Optimus Prime, his story after all. This time around, he also feels more like a completely fleshed out character. In terms of character development, I would say he's actually quite a big contrast from the Optimus Prime we saw in the Bumblebee movie, where he was pretty much this larger-than-life and flawless leader character. But here, it shows him as a character that has flaws, and also that even he doesn't always have an answer for everything. It also helped that he's around for the entire movie. Yeah, it shows him facing the consequences of decisions he makes, and also how he deals with the aftermath of events that happen. To go back on the voice acting, there is a moment that I remember in the movie where Optimus is at the mercy of certain circumstances. And it's that combination of facial expressions of Optimus Prime and voice work of Peter Cullen that made that scene stand out for me and made it so memorable. And Peter Cullen manages to pull it off in his voice to make Optimus Prime sound very insecure and vulnerable, and that's something we've never really seen before. I would say I find him a little bit too angsty, especially in the first half of the movie. It almost made me wonder if Peter Cullen wasn't related to Edward Cullen from Twilight, because Prime's pretty much on the same level. He only gets a pass from me because he sounds so cool. Optimus in this movie struggles, like a lot, not only on a moral or emotional level, but also on a combat level. Remember in the previous movie where he took out 6 Decepticon Seekers in less than 20 seconds and managed to fight his way out off screen after being surrounded by like 30 Decepticons? Forget about that. That's gone.
Remember, these are not Decepticons. They're Terracons, and used by Unicron.
Because for the majority of the movie, he seems to be unable to land like any decent hit on any of his enemies.
He does get better over time.
Yeah, he does. And he does eventually remind everyone why he's Optimus freaking Prime.
Optimus Prime is like,
Did you forget who I am?
yeah, he can't do an Optimus Prime impression. It's awful. I also want to add the inclusion of his mouth that bothered me when I saw the movie. I think seeing his face was very pivotal to bring that one scene you talked about early on to a higher emotional level. Yeah, I was glad to see his arc in this movie, and how he grows into the role of the Optimus Prime we all love and care about. Selfless, wise, compassionate, and endlessly courageous. Those are all examples of things I wish I could possess, but will never have.
You mean like having 2 eyes?
Boy, do not make me come over there.
Ask yourself this. What would Optimus Prime do? No. Wait, I take it back. Please ask yourself this. What would Mirage do?
Well, now since we are on the subject of Mirage, let me tell you this. Mirage is the smoothest Autobot ever. And by smooth, I mean smooth.
You mean more smooth than a piece of butter on an oiled sloped frying pan?
Yes.
Yeah, Mirage manages to upstage Jazz from the first Michael Bay Transformers, Dino from Dark of the Moon, and Hot Rod from The Last Night respectively. Pete Davidson's voice acting and the character of Mirage are such a great combination together, and Mirage really injects a lot of humor and energy in the movie. He's funny, he's humble, he's competent when it's needed, and overall he's just a very likable character. And unlike with Bumblebee, his relationship with Noah is treated like 2 friends hang out somewhere, and they have great chemistry together. For me, he's really a standout character. Speaking of which, Bumblebee on the other hand was treated like a pet in every movie he was in. And to be fair, the Bumblebee being paired with a human character thing was, or is getting really stale by this point, so I did like it when he was put more on the sidelines this time around.
Or maybe it was because he felt sexually harassed by Anthony Ramos like we saw in this frame.
Yeah, Bumblebee's like, can you please get off my rear before I file in a complaint with HR? I liked RC's character. She's noticeably smaller than all the other Autobots, but she's very nimble, and unlike previous live-action incarnations, she can actually take a hit and hold her own in a fight. She's not as front and center like Mirage or Optimus, but there are a few moments sprinkled here and there where you can see that she cares about her fellow Autobots, and that still makes her feel like an actual character. Wheeljack or Pablo isn't shown as prominently as the rest, and to be fair, he doesn't contribute that much to the story overall.
Stratosphere was just there to be the Uber driver, and that's about it.
And even that is handled way better than anything a Michael Bay Transformers movie ever gave to us. Because I remember in The Last Night, the characters used a submarine to travel around, and apparently it was supposed to be a transformer. It never spoke, nobody even acknowledged it as a living being, and it never displayed a hint of sentience. The makers of this movie around were like, yeah, we're not gonna do that anymore. On to the Maximals. In my opinion, there is not enough Maximal screen time to warrant a complete Rise of the Beasts title. However, though, they don't suffer from Age of Extinction Dinobots syndrome like I initially feared. But they appear throughout the whole movie and they don't feel shoehorned in. I would say the Autobot maximal screen time is about 60 to 40% ratio, so that's a pretty decent amount of screen time. They're not just there to be summoned when it's convenient for the plot, they have their own storyline. Optimus Primal is awesome. Ron Perlman manages to bring a very powerful presence with his voice, but he also manages to nail the scenes where Primal has to show his more gentle and vulnerable side when it's needed. Because he does have quite a lot of emotional scenes in this movie, and you feel for him, especially in his relationship with Airazor. I would even go as far as saying that Optimus Primal was the emotional center of this movie. And now on to the villains. Scourge is a sadistic a-hole. There's a reason why he's called Scourge, because every time he shows up, everybody has to slam their brakes and go Scourge.
Yeah, they're like, oh snap, it's Scorch, everybody run.
Because from the moment he appears, they let you know how menacing he can be. His first scene is him strolling out of a forest and all we see are his demonic eyes. And it doesn't stop there. Not only does he look menacing, he lets everyone know right off the bat why you should fear him. Scourge is efficient. He's ruthless and does not fool around, because with everyone who tries to stand up to him, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna make an example out of you. I did like his rivalry with Optimus Prime, and he's more than a worthy opponent for him. Overall, he's a very effective villain in my opinion. I don't have much to say about Nightbird and Battletrap. Battletrap is like the big heavy brute guy, and Nightbird is basically Shattered 2.0. They're both like the Transformers equivalent of Cull Obsidian Knight.
Overall, I think this movie managed to stick the landing as a worthy sequel to the Bumblebee movie, so I consider it cinema-worthy material.
I agree with you on that. The movie has some flaws, but they don't ruin it for me. Considering the amount of characters they have here, they surprisingly managed to keep it coherent and interesting enough, so I'm gonna consider this movie cinema-worthy material too. Thanks guys for listening.